Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. Happy to have you on board to the show on this BYU football game day eve. The Cougs are getting set to take on the Colorado Buffaloes Saturday night at Folsom Field. You can listen to the game on KSL News Radio at 8:15 p.m., 8:20 to get more technical. Extended pregame, myself and Kyle Ireland from Boulder will begin at 6 o'clock. We'll also have Cougar Sports Saturday from noon to 3 out in Colorado. Let's dive into the matchup. It's the Cougs and the Buffs here on Cougar Tracks.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
Big 12 lid lifter for BYU taking on the Colorado Buffaloes, 25th ranked Cougs. This is game number 30 for Coach Prime as Colorado's head coach. He's 15-14 overall, 12-14 against Power 4 opponents under Coach Prime is the Buffs. They've struggled in games going up against ranked opponents. They've lost 7 consecutive games against ranked teams, Colorado has. Their last win was Coach Prime's debut, game number 1 against TCU back in 2023. One of those ranked losses, of course, was to BYU in the Alamo Bowl, and BYU will look to try to dominate Colorado as much as they did in San Antonio about 9 months ago. And I would have thought that after that experience, feeling the style of play of BYU last season, that maybe the Colorado media would say, yeah, BYU is going to be a really tough out. And I think there are pockets of Colorado, Denver media that feel like BYU's going to win this one big. I'll share my score prediction coming up a little bit later. But I think the narrative is that, well, who's BYU played? They're 3-0, but who have they played? And I get it. That's fair. The non-conference was really weak for BYU. But I will say East Carolina is no slouch. I watched them last night against Army. They put up a quick 21 points in the first quarter. They rolled on that Thursday night game in a quick turnaround against a triple option team in Army who's not very good, but Army beat a Big 12 team, and East Carolina handled that squad and was very competitive against a P4 in NC State to open the season. So, and I thought Stanford, pretty physical defense, and BYU never was pressured in those games. They took care of business with flying colors. East Carolina in the first half a little bit, but BYU has dominated its opposition. I think that needs to be accounted for when you factor in, okay, yes, the schedule's been weak, but you're not having close calls. You're dominating these teams. Colorado comes in at 2-2. They haven't beat a Power 4 team yet this season. They lost to Houston, and they lost in their opener to Georgia Tech. No bad losses on that front. I think Houston's a good football team. Georgia Tech, of course, is flying high this season. They're in the national rankings. For BYU in this matchup, I'm really intrigued to see how BYU's defense performs against what I would say is probably the best running quarterback that the Cougars have faced to date this season. Kaidon Salter for Colorado, expected, of course, to play. He's probable on the injury report, but last week he was dynamite in that return to the starting QB spot, 304 passing yards, 86 rushing yards on 11 carries. That's a big-time stat line. I mean, that's the type of stat line I remember back in the day with Taysom Hill when he was doing his thing at BYU. So how does BYU account for Salter and that extra number in the run game? That will be intriguing to me. And I think Colorado, what's interesting about them is typically you think since Coach Prime took over, big shots, big plays down the field, because they always have good receivers. They're pretty balanced, 52% pass, 48% rush, make them one-dimensional. They've got some little bit of shuffling of the deck at running back this week. We'll see what they do at that running back spot. Maybe Draylon Miller, that was teased. He's a wide receiver for the Buffs. Maybe he could be utilized at running back potentially. So BYU has to be dialed in for all possibilities with what Colorado does. But I think Kaidon Salter, accounting for him and limiting him on the ground, will be huge for the Cougars. BYU, on the flip side, offensively, is leaning heavily into the ground attack. BYU, one of the best rush offenses in college football this season. They run the ball 57% of the time this season. I wonder how much does that change with Sione Po'uha out. Now, Sione Po'uha is the second-string running back for BYU behind LJ Martin, but there's no proven established number 2 behind LJ now. LJ is so critical to the success of BYU football. He carries this team. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The season will go as far as LJ takes you. And it's a tough juggling act because you want to feed him the rock a lot, but at the same time, you don't want to risk all the contact and the wear and tear because you have no depth now at that running back position without Sione Po'uha. Yes, you've got Enoch Nawahine, you've got Jovesa Damuni, Preston Rex. Damuni and Preston Rex have never played in a game. Enoch Nawahine played for about a month last season, and it was sparingly outside of the Baylor game. So will we see maybe the balance of play call lean more to the passing attack? And Bear Bachmeier was brilliant last week against East Carolina. I'm really curious to see the follow-up act to that impressive performance in Greenville a week ago. Think about what BYU has been doing passing the football, top 50 nationally in yards per pass this season, 7.8. That's a good number. Bear was 120 yards passing on 9 of 11 in that second half. And in the first half, too, I think it gets forgotten because it was a little bit lackluster in terms of scoring. He passed for 126 yards in that first half. So it was a balanced night throughout, but the efficiency in the second half, the decision-making was just on point from Bear. And again, 9 of 11 in the second half. His accuracy was on point. He was fantastic. And BYU was darn near moving the chains every time he completed a pass. So do they lean a little bit more to the passing attack? And Colorado's pass defense has been prone to giving up plays. I mean, I think when you think of a Colorado team led by Coach Prime, you think they're going to be elite secondary, and they were last year with Travis Hunter, the one of the greats in the sport. But they're giving up 214 yards per game through the air. On the ground attack, they're giving up 214.8 as well on the ground. So Colorado gives up yards. This defense is not great. BYU has one of the best rush offenses in college football, one of the best in the Big 12. They are the best in the Big 12, averaging 265 yards on the ground, and Colorado's rush defense is 14th in the league. So that, to me, creates some opportunities for BYU maybe to get a little more aggressive in the air, but also still utilize that ground attack with LJ Martin. Another interesting little tidbit, Colorado has never won a home game as an underdog in the Coach Prime era. They're 0-4 in these spots. I think another thing I want to see from BYU in this game, finish drives with touchdowns. Will Ferrin is the GOAT. He's outstanding, right? I mean, he is one of the all-timers at BYU at the kicker position. But BYU needs to get touchdowns in this game. BYU has settled for 6 field goals on 16 red zone attempts this season. They're 16 of 17 this year on red zone, so 17 attempts. They need to finish drives with touchdowns this week. Love Ferrin, but let's see the touchdowns in greater numbers this week from BYU. Real quick before we get to a break, some players to watch for Colorado. Omarion Miller, wide receiver, and also Sincere Brown, 2 dynamic players. Brown's more the deep threat guy, so Shmev, they need to be up for the challenge, and I think they will be. That was a real confidence boost, I think, for BYU's cornerback unit last week against a good wide receiver unit in East Carolina to really keep them in check. Yes, East Carolina got theirs, but not allowing the big ones, and I think that'll be of note in this game. I'd also add, too, for Colorado, keep an eye out for their punter, Damon Greaves. 5 punts inside the 10-yard line. Colorado's been pretty good in terms of their opponent's field position. They're usually at the 25. And so when you're having to go 75 yards every drive, that's significant. So can BYU win the field position battle? BYU's got a great punter as well in Sam Vanderhaar, so keep an eye out there. Tafiq Bayard, he's our leading tackler at safety, 25 tackles. And then, of course, keep an eye out for their offensive linemen, Jordan, the franchise Seaton, and Zy Chrysler, a transfer in from Illinois, both expected to play this week in these games. That's a really good offensive line, much improved from last year. So BYU's defensive line has to be on point. Let's take a break. We'll get to more BYU and Colorado coming up a little bit later with a score prediction and the history of the series right here on Cougar Tracks. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Every day, Cougar Tracks is coming to you daily to give you the latest in BYU sports, and wanted to get a quick recruiting update on the show here as BYU basketball begins an official visit with five-star combo guard Austin Gooseby, combo guard out of Melissa, Texas, 6'5", 186 pounds. He's got Duke, Texas. They're viewed as kind of the top teams. Baylor and BYU are in the mix. Gooseby is LDS. Does BYU have a shot? I always look at BYU now. You know, you get that visit. He obviously took some game visits as well during this past season. But if BYU wants a guy bad enough and they believe in someone bad enough, can they get the job done? I'd like to think nowadays, absolutely. Back in the day, I would have said, well, Duke, Texas, good luck, BYU. You don't have a shot. But nowadays, with KY, with the war chest, with rev share, maybe it could happen. We'll see. But he's got an official visit coming up this weekend. Football recruiting news. BYU football offered a pair of intriguing recruits, both 4 stars, in their respective recruiting classes. BYU offered 4-star wide receiver Roy Oliver from Chandler, Arizona, 5'11", 165-pound prospect out of Arizona. And then Samaje Stanford, class of 2027, out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, 5'11", 180 pounds is Stanford. So BYU trying to get in the mix for some heralded recruits. You're seeing the recruiting reach expand for BYU. It's nothing new for BYU to offer high-profile guys, but there's proof of concepts even in football to show, hey, if you're Stanford, Samaje Stanford, class of 2027 prospect, look at the safeties BYU has. Come be one of those guys. Come be one of those next great defensive backs for BYU. Roy Oliver, wide receiver. Look at the success BYU's had at the wide receiver unit with many players. LaMason Waller's going to be a good one in the future. He'll be a good player for BYU down the road when he's ready to go. JoJo Phillips has had success. So BYU, I think, has a lot to offer. And then again, like basketball, as I noted, NIL as well. Get it done. So I thought those were notable scholarship offers extended on the recruiting trail. But zeroing in on BYU and Colorado, 8:15 kick on Saturday night. Pregame begins at 6 o'clock on KSL News Radio. It's going to be a much more heated battle in the trenches, as I noted earlier here on the show. And one of the guys that's coaching up these interior defensive tackles is the D-tackles coach, Sione Puha. I caught up with Coach earlier this week to get the lowdown on his defensive tackles as they get ready to take on the Buffs.
BYU football is getting ready to take on the Colorado Buffaloes, and joining me now is Coach Puha, defensive tackles coach for BYU. And Coach, how's the team feeling coming out of that win, completing non-conference play? How would you assess where your position group is after the non-conference portion of the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, we're proud to, where we're at this point, but we know we still got things we would take care of. One of our core values is to remain humble and hungry. And even though, we got the victory, you stay humble about that, but you become hungry for the things that you know that you could do better. And so guys coming back, it was good that this morning, guys, extra guys came in and watched film in this morning. So you kind of see the hunger, and then to be able to correct the things that we had to correct and then show that in practice.
So you haven't seen any change now with this group being ranked, and so they're still remaining humble then?
Yeah, no doubt. We just stay where we're at and just work the way we work. They always say what got you there will keep you there, or they always say go back to the basics. You never leave the basics, and just stay with what got you there. And so we've got a formula, we've got a culture, and so we just try to do us better every single week.
Has Keanu Tanavasa been everything you'd hoped for when you got him in the portal?
Yeah, I think Keanu, John Tamuepeau, Justin Kirkland, Anisi Kafusi Parkofe. I mean, everybody has been what we've expected, even more. And I think it's just because of the character, the homes that they come from. So those guys have all collectively, individually and collectively, have been a bright spot for our room.
You brought up Kirkland. Will he play this week?
Yes. Yep. So we're planning on him. He's ready to roll, man, and he's super excited.
What does he bring to this position group? Because each guy brings their own piece to this room, but What did you guys see in Kirkland when you got him in the spring portal window?
Yeah, I mean, it comes with tons of experience, has a lot of game snaps, and so just the wisdom that comes with that is you can't duplicate that or teach that in the classroom. So his experience and his expertise and his form of play is what he brings.
And John Puha is still, I think, a name that gets overlooked sometimes by the fans. I mean, he's been really good in spring and camp. This is no surprise to you guys, but what was it about him? Where's he taking the biggest jump from, last year to now, where he's a real difference maker along with Keanu?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about people being all in. I mean, he has a different version of all in. He had to voluntarily, take a red shirt in order to come back in a winner, and had plenty of opportunities in the other places, but he chose to stay for BYU. And so that kind of commitment is really awesome. You know what I mean? To see that kind of commitment. And this is just really the outcomes or the fruits of his commitment to BYU. And so, other than, him making plays and all that stuff, I'm sure as Cougar Nation knows that those are the kind of men that we have, especially in John Puha, man. I mean, they'll be proud of him on and off.
This year, Colorado's got a bigger offensive line. Yeah. What's some of the differences in Colorado this year, and how do you feel like you guys stack up in the interior?
Yeah, I mean, a big offensive line. They play well together. I mean, they got that great tackle on the edge, and so all of them they work great as a unit together. And so we just got to make sure that we work great as a unit as well, right? And so it's really their unit versus ours. Again, they're a great unit and they play well together, and so we got to make sure that we show up ready.
What have been some? You guys are getting ready for your the Big 12 conference portion of the schedule. 2 years into this thing in the league, what have been some maybe characteristics that have been kind of carryovers from the previous years that you feel like, hey, this kind of applies to navigating a Big 12 conference season and trying to, be the best that you can each week?
Yeah, I think it's just being a better version of yourself, right? You don't really let circumstances or stages or anything or rankings or anything really change who you are. So just our ability to become better at who we are, what our culture is, and what our identity is something that we'll just evolve. And I don't think that's attributed to going to a conference or a non-conference. I think that's just something you try to do every single year as an individual and as a team. And so for us, just trying to be more humble, trying to be more hungry, trying to love and learn more, and as we become better versions of ourselves, that's the product we want to put on the field.
Last few moments here with Coach Puha. Appreciate all the time, Coach. I know that you coach the D tackles and you're not coaching the D ends, but you guys all work together. Is there any reason that's caused maybe the D ends to not get any sacks? We see the D tackles with Keanu, John Puha. Is there any reason for that? Is that kind of like the method to the scheme with the defensive ends, maybe not getting those sacks? I know Logan's been great with tackle for loss, but any kind of explanation to that, you'd say?
Everybody will make the plays when it comes their ways. And so everybody just waits and does their job, and things come accordingly. And so guys are really just focused on how they do their job, how they do it really well, and the production comes in its own. And so we just take care of, we can take care of each player, same thing, especially with the D tackles. We do what we can do, right? And the plays will come our way. But our first most responsibility is to be able to take care of our technique, take care of our fundamentals, and then that stuff comes after.
Last thing, and how beneficial has it been to where this is year 3? You guys have all worked together here at BYU, this coaching staff. How much, I don't want to say it's easy because it's hard every week to get these wins, but just how helpful is it to get a head start on a week when you guys just are all in alignment?
Yeah, I think we're in alignment with our culture, We're in alignment with our goals and our vision and the mission of the school. And so I think as everybody does that, what we do is we bring our version of that culture. And so we're kind of like a bouquet, if that makes sense, right? And so we celebrate each other. We celebrate each other's wins, celebrate each other's highlight within the culture. And so that's what makes it super enjoyable to be here. And I think it's really just the offspring of what's happening, right? If we're able to enjoy each other's company and working with each other and having challenges and overcoming those challenges in alignment with the vision and goals of the school and also the program. And so just doing that provides like a compass for us, if that makes sense. And so we're all looking the same direction, man. We can all roll at the same speed.
I know I said last question, but I got one more. Yeah. How's it been coaching your son still, second year with Ville, and him, continuing to develop along that defensive end spot, taking on a bigger role this year? How much you enjoyed seeing your son taking on a bigger role?
Yeah, it's been super awesome to see him kind of just blossom, and more importantly, blossom on his own, right? Blossom into his own name, and I love the fact that he's able to do what he has to do and have the growing pains at the same time that he has to go to. My main job is to not be his coach. My main job is to be his dad. So for me, it's all about gas money, pizzas, and door dashes, and I'm happy to do that of course, I'll be there to be able to help with any schematical stuff. But man, Coach Anderson and Coach K-Pop do such a good job with him and stuff. And so again, I'm just here for the pizzas and for the door dashes that he needs, man. Try to be the best dad I can.
That's Coach Sione Puha. Appreciate Coach for joining me to talk about his defensive tackle room. Is it still kind of surreal, Cougar fans, to see Sione Puha, Chad Kahaha, Gary Anderson, Jay Hill? These are all Ute men. These are all Utes. And they're leading BYU's defense. These guys are really good. They are some of the best in the business when it comes to development, scheme, attacking opposing offenses, These guys are really good. They are pros. They've done it at a high level. It was cool, too, seeing Coach Puha on Wednesday. He and Reno Mahe, who was there with his Sky Ridge team, I believe it was a youth football team, Sky Ridge, and Kalani, they're taking photos. BYU football is a family deal. And for someone like Coach Puha to be able to coach his son and be there, well, he's not coaching him, as you heard. It's the door dashes, it's the meals. That's Coach K-Pop. That's Kelly Papinga handling it with Coach Phil. But it's a family deal at BYU, and Kalani has created a culture to where even men that were diehard Utes, and still probably are to their core, they're proud of their history, their career as a player and as a coach. But they've created an environment at BYU, Kalani has, to where these guys feel welcomed. They're part of it, and they are doing a great job with BYU's defense. You think about the climb that BYU's defense has made from 2022 when it bottomed out. BYU's defense bottomed out, and then you had to build it up in the Big 12. And now they're one of the best defenses, not only in the Big 12, but to me in college football. This is an elite defense, and with the addition of Justin Kirkland, that just rounds out the depth. I still look at John Talmoy-Peau and Keanu Tanavasa as the top guys. No doubt in my mind. But Kirkland just brings out the rounded depth. And then you add all this personnel to continue to compete at a high level. This is a nasty group. They are talented, they're deep, and they're led by a lot of guys that had past connections to the University of Utah, BYU's rivals. So wanted to add that because I think it's kind of cool. Just it's still surreal because Sione Puha is a Utah legend. He was a great Ute, and now he's coaching up BYU's defensive tackles. Final break. Get to my score prediction on the other side. It's Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper here with you. BYU and Colorado have not faced off much, even though they're bordering states. The last meeting, of course, was the Alamo Bowl. BYU won 36-14. I was looking back on the stats. Jake Retzloff had 151 passing yards, 2 INTs, 0 touchdowns. I forgot he had 0 touchdowns and 2 picks. Gosh, that's not a good box score. Yes, the win was great, but the passing wasn't great. Let's say this. Bear exceeds 151. And I feel pretty confident he's not going to throw 2 picks either. Prior to 2024, BYU played Colorado in the 1988 Freedom Bowl. BYU won that game 20-17 thanks to Jason Chaffetz, 2 field goals out in Anaheim. Tomorrow night is the first regular season meeting between BYU and Colorado since 1981, the last visit to Boulder. Jim McMahon suffered an injury in the third quarter. BYU at that point was on a long winning streak, 16 consecutive wins. They beat Colorado 41-20, and Colorado was wearing those powder blue lids that had the powder blue logo. Then before 1981, it was conference game. 1947 in the Mountain States Conference, 1937 and to 1922 Rocky Mountain Conference. Colorado leads the all-time series 8-4-1, but they haven't won a game since 1947. So BYU is in control of this series, at least recently, since the last 80 years or so. But they look to begin the Big 12 era of this series. And how will this game go? You know what time it is.
Score prediction. Will BYU come out on top? It's time for Mitch's score prediction for the next game.
Should be an exciting crowd at Folsom Field. I think there's going to be a great turnout of BYU fans, I would expect. But as the week has progressed for this game, I feel good the whole week about BYU's chances to improve to 4-0 and to, more importantly, get to 1-0 in Big 12 play. I will say BYU wins this football game 31-17. I think BYU wins by 2 touchdowns over the Buffs for a couple reasons. One, it's the confidence I have in Bear Bachmeier of his decision-making. He takes care of the football. When you have an elite defense like BYU does, if you just simply play to kick, you will be in a great spot. You will be in an excellent position. Okay, the drive stalls. Fine. Let Vanderhaar do his thing, pin him inside the 20, and then let the defense go to work. That's a good recipe. I like Bear Bachmeier's decision-making. This will be the toughest defense in terms of individual personnel that BYU has faced, but I think that they've been prone, Colorado has, to giving up some big plays. So this could be one of those days where Bear has some big gains through the air. So I trust Bear Bachmeier. I'm also really curious to see how Isaiah Jada, a former Colorado Buffalo, performs in this game. You got to think this game means a lot to him. Also, Isaiah Glasker, who has been excellent in coverage, particularly against tight ends this season. Isaiah Glasker can just be an eraser out on the field. And how does Jay Hill and Justin Enna utilize Glasker to erase a key player on Colorado's offense? I'll be watching for that. And of course, Jack Kelly, the best pass rusher on this team. He's got 3 sacks. He needs, I believe, a half a sack to get to 25 sacks, I believe, in his career. He's been a phenomenal football player during his college football career that dates back to Weber State. Curious to see how Carson Ryan is utilized again. He has been a safety blanket, according to Bear Bachmeier, and that's been a nice luxury for BYU. And then the follow-up performance for Evan Schmev Johnson after his National Player of the Week honors for the 2-interception game that he had last week on back-to-back defensive plays. But I'm going with the Cougs, 31-17 over the Buffs, and they improve to 4-0 and 1-0 in Big 12 play. We will have full coverage from inside Folsom Field in Boulder, live updates on KSLSports.com, extended pregame and Cougar Sports Saturday tomorrow here on KSL News Radio. And then make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you have the post-game reaction show as well. Saturday night, late, probably early Sunday morning. Let's call it what it is, early Sunday morning, probably around 1 a.m. You'll get a Cougar Tracks post-game reaction show from Boulder as well. So don't miss it, and then we'll be back on Monday to do the thing for BYU in West Virginia next week on a shortened week, Friday next week. So it's going to be a busy, busy weekend. I've got to get to the airport, catch a flight to head out to Boulder. So I will talk to you next time here on Cougar Tracks, and it's always powered by KSL Sports.